Hey, this is David Hayter. You may know me as the screenwriter of films like X-Men, X-Men 2, and Watchmen, but you probably know me best as the voice of Solid Snake from Metal Gear Solid. And you're listening to Hawaii's #1 podcast, the Kasanova podcast. Kept you waiting, huh?
And welcome everyone to another episode of Hawaii's #1 podcast, and officially the #1 podcast in the Pacific, the Kasanova podcast. I'm your host, Mikhail Kasanova, and I've got the one, the only, the lovely Dana Bentz of StreamYard back on the show. Dana, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Mikhail. Thank you so much for having me. I just watched your intro video and it's phenomenal. I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been since the last thing you're on, I've been doing a lot of rebranding. I've been working with a lot of different people in, movies, video games, and more, with my intro that was custom made. I custom made my intro with the 3D rotation and then the billboard sign.
That was fancy.
And like the audio was actually, that song was actually made by the composer for Street Fighter 5. It's still going.
No way.
So he's one of my friends.
Cool.
Daniel Lindham. So he
how
made
cool.
that for
Shout
me.
out. Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so hard to make those intro videos look cool and look fancy, and then also not get them copyright claimed when you use just a regular song.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, it's actually one of the things that is amazing about StreamYard. So I'm so glad you guys threw that in there. This video clips. But before we do all that, Dana, go ahead and introduce yourself.
We'll start here. So I'm Dana Bentz. I'm the head of marketing here at StreamYard right here. For those of you in the audience who don't know what StreamYard is, it's a live streaming studio that's browser-based, cloud-based. So it's just really easy to use and it's not really hard on your computer. So it's really taken off in the last several months as people have been trying to find other streaming needs and easier live streaming ways, easier podcasting tools and things like that. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, definitely. And it's it's definitely something I've been using for I want to say the better part of the last year as my platform for podcasting. Because before I would alternate between Skype or Zoom, and then I'd have to do recording of myself with one camera, recording of my guests, and then try to go in Premiere and put it all together to make it look nice. Yeah. Whereas with this, everything from the overlay to my layout, I can have chat going, I can live stream straight from it, or my intro and my outro. Everything is right here, and it's just one of the things, and I know last time you were on, I was praising it, and I'm still going to praise it. It's one of the things that I absolutely love about StreamYard, and so many more podcasters are hopping on using this platform, and I'm so happy about that.
Aw, that's so good to hear, and that's why I love coming on your podcast. I love hearing how excited people are about StreamYard, but you specifically, because I think it fits the podcaster's needs super well, because especially in this time where you're not meeting with your guests in the actual studio, you've got to, you're at home, I'm at home. And so you've got to find an easy way to bring in guests in a smooth interview format. And what I think people like about StreamYard's guesting feature is that it's super easy for the guest to join you. And so for all of those people who aren't tech savvy, who maybe don't have Skype or can't figure out how to stream in somewhere else or record themselves locally, StreamYard just makes it easy by sending them a link, and then that's all the guest needs. They can join on their phone, they can join on their computer. They just click the link and they're in. They don't have to download any software. So I think that's why making guesting easy was one of the reasons StreamYard just was so well used in the pandemic.
Yeah, it's definitely, because I know when the pandemic first took off, we had to stay home and everything, and we had the lockdowns here in Hawaii, and then when it lifted, a lot of my guests were actually coming out here to Hawaii, and I was getting to a point where I was like, okay, we'll do in-person interviews, and then we had another lockdown, so I was like, all right, so what do we do now? I think we just came out of our third or fourth lockdown.
Oh my gosh. They just keep putting you back.
Yeah, it's like Hawaii will open up for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then boom, it's back on lockdown. So a lot of my guests that I've had over the months have actually been out here, and I would literally go to Waikiki because I'm like 2 minutes away. My house is 2 minutes from Waikiki, so I was like, all right, I'll just walk down there. I don't even have to drive there.
Yeah.
And it's like as soon as I'm ready to do an in-person interview, it's like, lockdown. So I'm like, all right, let me send you the link. And then they're like, oh, what do I need to download? Like literally everyone asks like, what platform are we using? Are we using Discord? Are we using this? Are we using that? I'm like, no, we're using StreamYard.
Oh,
and what's interesting is a lot of the podcasters and not only that, celebrities and various people I've had on over the last couple of months have been like, what is this? And, I'll tell them like, this is what I do all my streaming from when it comes to doing podcasts. Not only that, say I've actually had one instance where I had a developer on and they had a brand new video game. So I'm having them on, and then on one screen, I'm doing a screen share of my desktop, and I'm playing their game as they're giving commentary on it.
Oh, how cool. What a great show. It must be so fun. Like there's so many uses for it. Like you can just do an interview like we do, and like you have a lot of, because that's the podcast format. It's just interviews. But you can do so many other fun things like that, like screen sharing a video game or screen sharing PowerPoint presentations. Like you can do all those crazy things.
Yeah, definitely. And, over the last couple of months, you guys have added a lot of new functionalities with the platform, like video clips. I remember that was one we had talked about previously on the show, and being able to run intros and outros, and now it's there. You can run your clips. There's a built-in countdown with 30 seconds on it, which is cool if you want to have a countdown to your show. And then if you have custom intros, like I have custom intros and outros, and it's all right there. Like that's what was the driving force behind implementing that?
Well, I think the biggest thing was it was a feature that was being requested so often. Like people like you, other people with podcasts, other people with just live streaming shows. The request we were getting was not only intro videos, but countdown timers, because for those of the people who actually live stream to Facebook or YouTube or whatever platform, it's nice to have a little bit of a countdown, even if it's just our 30-second demo timer, because each of your followers get the notifications from those platforms at different times that you're live. So it's nice to just give them a little bit of a chance to get the notification, click on it, and now they're in your video. And so that little 30 seconds or minute countdown timer just gives the ability to get that much more, like that many more live viewers, it feels like, or they're just able to watch your whole content. So I think that was one of the reasons. But the other reason was just, it's such a great feature. And when you're doing a show, that's another way to create a really professional live stream. And that's one of StreamYard's 3 pillars of business. The first one's ease of use, the second one's stability, and the third one is professional streams. So professional streams, like that's how we implement features, is does it hit those three key things, and making more professional streams or making your stream look more professional. That was one of the reasons we definitely had to implement those video clips.
Definitely. And I'm incredibly grateful that you guys have done it. It's gotten to the point, my show is so streamlined with everything you guys have implemented, to the point where I literally run the intro, run, the plug, my promo plugs, whatever guest I use, I'll run that, run the intro, do the show, run the outro, and that's it. And literally I'll just download it. I can upload it to either YouTube or Twitch. Whereas before I'm like, okay, I got to do this, then go to Premiere or go to Final Cut Pro. And it's like, it's either way. Regardless of having to do that previously, like doing that all with StreamYard is significantly easier than doing that with whatever I was using before. And it's just,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
other people with podcasters will feel that pain. Like it takes a long time to edit a
yeah,
podcast, you know? It takes a
yeah,
long time, or a blog post, or even a video upload. Like those things take a long time. So that's the beauty of combining like live streaming with podcasting. It's like you put those two together, and then we film this 30-minute, hour-long interview, and then you just upload it and you call it a day. Like your
yeah.
job's done.
So, for you, with, you know, with working with, and talking to more content creators and podcasters and whatnot, have you seen like a large influx, especially with the pandemic, of people reaching out to you or having to work with more people?
Yeah, so definitely March and April were just crazy. Like
Mm-hmm.
it hit the fan. Like it was so crazy, and our team had to grow as fast as we could. We had to scale our servers as fast as we could. And there were a couple of hiccups, you know, with doubling our company in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But there weren't, like, surprisingly, there weren't too many like issues or hiccups, if you want to call them that,
Mm-hmm.
that happened in those early months, which I think that just goes to show you how the developers built the platform in the beginning. Like from day one, they planned to have 240,000 monthly active broadcasters.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was one good thing about StreamYard. But yeah, even in the last few months where we've seen people start going back to work, we were kind of thinking, okay, maybe growth will drop off. Less people are going to stop using StreamYard, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't seen that at all. Like we haven't seen a drop off in our growth since like in the last couple of months. So we've kind of just had this, like we got a boost from the pandemic, and then we kind of just been growing steady ever since. So I don't know if that's just people have decided to start live streaming, and then now they decide they like it, or they're starting podcasts and they're finding success, so they keep their show going. But yeah, the influx of users hasn't really stopped.
Yeah. And I mean, definitely, I think, you know, from a creator standpoint, I don't really see that any of the competitors for your guys' product have the feature set. And I think once more and more people have been seeing that, as, you know, this year has gone on, and even last year, that it's been the turning tide for them to switch over to using StreamYard versus competitors. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And I hope that's the case, because there's a lot of other tools out there. Like people are still using Zoom to stream their meetings, just
yeah.
because I think a lot of people don't know of the features StreamYard can add, like videos, like you were saying, and custom branding like this. But like each tool does a different thing. And I think like how I like to characterize StreamYard in the sea of tools is like it's just the easiest one. Like if you're getting started live streaming, like you have to start with StreamYard. And maybe when your stream gets super advanced and you want to add all these crazy things and customize like the boxes and things like that, like you can get there. You can get to those other types of software. But when you're just starting out, or when you just want to keep it simple, like you don't want to spend all that time doing the editing and making it like this crazy thing that it doesn't need to be. Like you put on such a professional, high quality podcast in such a short amount of time.
Yeah. It's definitely one of the things, and, you know, the last couple of months I've actually been working with the various universities out here. So University of Hawaii, Chaminade University, and Hawaii Pacific University, where I've been speaking to the students that have been interested in either getting into content creation, YouTube, podcasting, streaming, and more. And one of the questions that I constantly had from the students, as well as also from the faculty, was like, how do you do your show with that custom overlay and with everything you're doing? I'm like, I do it all from StreamYard. So one time when when we came out of, I forget which lockdown it was. We came out of
Which
one of the
one?
I've lost count at this point.
Yeah.
when we came out of one of the lockdowns, actually, I went to each of the colleges because they would, the ones on Maui and Big Island, they flew me out to go and speak at the colleges. And so I would go to each of the campuses. And then when I did my presentation, I would show them StreamYard. And they're like, oh, you don't use Zoom? You don't use this? I'm like, no, I use StreamYard. And I showed them the functionality of how simple and easy it is. And a lot of the students were like, oh, I thought I had to have this super expensive equipment. I thought I need this and have this. I'm like, no, it's all web-based, it's cloud-based.
Yep.
And literally, if you don't need a crazy overlay or you don't need anything fancy, you can go with the standard. If you want more personalized features, there are, tier paid sections you can go with. Like if you want to do 720p recording, or you want to do 1080p recording, I'm like, there are options for that depending on how many guests you're going to have on, the platforms you want to go to. I'm like, everything is all centralized into one user base. Well, one user interface. And so they were like, oh, wow. And so I know two schools, I want to say University of Hawaii, Maui, and Hawaii Pacific University, both campuses out here. I know I switched them over to using StreamYard, but it's crazy. Like when I think about how many people this platform could just, it could be such a blessing for them to use as opposed to the old and archaic software and the platforms that we've been using for so long.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny that you say that the students were like, oh, that's all, like you just use StreamYard to make your show what it is, because your show looks great. Like it's so fancy. It's so like on brand. And then you've got your intro, like that intro video looks awesome. And then you have all the places. Like I love all the places you stream to so that everyone knows, like they can tune into you on their favorite platform. So it really does look like you're fancy, like you know what you're doing. But then when you let them know, like it's StreamYard and this is how I set it up and this is how easy it is. And like you can get fancy with it later, but you can just start with the things that are built in, like that countdown timer that you mentioned, that's just the demo one that everyone gets. Like you could start with that until you're ready to like, okay, now I'm going to make a really cool background, like this picture you took, and then you put your logo on top. Like you can figure out how to do that on Photoshop later. But like you don't have to have all that stuff when you're getting ready to start a live stream, which I think it holds some people back. I know it holds some of the people I know who they like have this really great idea for a podcast, but then they're like, I have no idea where to start. Like, where would I even find a guest? Like, what do I even do first? But I think starting small and just starting with like, okay, I'm going to find a guest and I'm going to like set up StreamYard and schedule a podcast or something like that. Like, that's a great way to start. And then once you do your first show, you're going to figure out like all these cool things you can do instead. And then you'll watch this show to get ideas. Like, okay, I want an intro like Mikkel. Like, that's really cool. And then you can figure out how to do that. Or pay someone to build it for you. But the nice thing is like, you don't have to be that fancy. Like you don't have to make it look that perfect. You can just start with something easy.
Yeah. And it's definitely, and I'm glad you brought that up because it's definitely one of the things that a lot of, it really does hold a lot of people back is they have this idea that, they need all this top of the line stuff just to get started. And it could be a very creatively stifling experience to go through. I know I got recently partnered over the last couple of months with Aver Media, who makes video game capture cards and home office cameras, microphones and whatnot. So they did an interview with me for International Podcasters Day, and I was there featured. Cool. I'm not the only podcaster they have, but they featured me.
Cool.
And
wow. Congrats.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. So they were asking me about like what advice would I give to start, what software and things that I use, and I told them, just like I tell everyone else, like you just need to start, because once you get past that hurdle of starting, then you'll be able to branch out and do so much more. But when you're just stuck there with I need the perfect overlay. I need the perfect, like topics and this and that. Like, no, just
Yeah.
start. Like, I
Yeah.
understand. I like I tell people I've been doing this for 5 years, but like there's a point even up until this year where I still had my script. I was still nervous about this, and this, and then I got to the point where
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? If I'm gonna keep doing this, I need to just do it. Like Nike says, just do
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah. Well, it's the fear of perfection, I think. Like people are
yeah.
like, I've gotta have that perfect overlay. Or like I've gotta have a perfect intro video, or like I gotta look perfect on camera. Like, and then that's what keeps people from actually just going live. Like you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
like just start. Like just do something. And I think that's such great advice for the people who haven't started yet, because
Mm-hmm.
like you're only gonna improve when
Yeah.
you start doing it, like
Yeah.
when I first started my very first live stream show, like 2 years ago, when I was testing out the waters of live
Mm-hmm.
streaming, like my show looks terrible. Like I had terrible internet. Like it wasn't perfect, but like
Mm-hmm.
it was me starting to do it. And now when you look at my show, like it looks great. Like we've got an intro video, we've got this, like we've got lower thirds and like things like that. But it was only because I actually started to live stream that I
Mm-hmm.
ever learned like other tips. And then I heard from so and so that they're doing this and trying this. And then I would try something new out and I didn't like that so much, so I change it. Like you only are going to get there. You're only going to like get to perfection once you start working on it.
Yeah. And speaking of your show, let's talk about it. You have your own
Sure.
talk show podcast. Like, like
Yeah.
how has that been so far?
So, well, it's been good so far. So, I recently started a new show. It's called
Mm-hmm.
2 Cents with Bentz.
Mm-hmm.
It's a marketing and branding show. So, I really
Love
wanted
that
to.
name.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the reasons I started it was not only to network with like other people in the industry of social media and live
Mm.
streaming, because having guests on your show is such a great way to network with other people doing the same thing as you. Great way to network in lockdown for sure.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to learn from the experts. Like I really wanted to have these conversations anyway. And so I
Mm-hmm.
thought that there was an audience out there who would want to also listen to these marketing conversations or these branding conversations. And what I'm really interested in now is personal branding. And because
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of like the way our social media is moving. Like
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by personal branding is like Dana Bentz is a brand. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
not the StreamYard brand. Like companies have brands. We all know companies have brands, but like a personal brand is becoming more and more of a thing in our world and
Mm-hmm.
more of an important thing. And so I wanted to work on that through this live streaming show. And so I have another live stream show for StreamYard, but now I wanted to build this personal one. So that's 2 Cents with Bentz. We go live every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah.
And with everything that you've been doing with your show, like how much have you been enjoying like building your own personal brand? Like, because that's
That's a
such a
good
fun,
question.
such a fun journey.
Yeah, it has been really fun. Like it's really rewarding when you see growth. Like when you
Mm-hmm.
see people reach out to you, to be on your show. I think that's when you kind of know your show has made it in a way, or like there's just like your show's providing enough value that people want to be on it. That's a really special feeling. Like people want to be on your show, Miguel. Like that's kind of when you know you've got a really good thing going.
Yeah.
But it has been really fun, and I think it's slow. Like it takes a long time to build a personal brand, or like maybe it takes a long time just because it's an always, like you've always got to be working on it, because you can't just have a brand and now it's there and never
Mm-hmm.
like work on it. You've always got to be like putting out content. So but I mean, it has been fun because it's all about me. Like it's my personal brand. I get to choose what it's going to be about or how I'm going to present myself. So I like that question because it has been fun.
And one of the things, like too, like I've recently had several people that are in the marketing field on the show last couple of weeks, and one of the things that I've noticed that I guess a lot of content creators and even podcasters and live streamers can start utilizing is effective marketing, like utilizing social media. Like if you've got a show or you've got something, take a clip, like a 30-second clip or minute clip or 2-minute clip, upload that on Twitter, upload that on Instagram, put it on Instagram Reels, or put it on TikTok. Like when it comes to like the marketing aspect, it's just like you've got to do something to get your show out there. And it's interesting because there's so many creators that I know. They're like, okay, I've got a podcast. Oh, I've got a YouTube channel. I'm just gonna spam my link everywhere. And I'm like, that's not how it works.
Yeah, that's so true. Like you've gotta be putting value out there. So whether that's like a little highlight clip of your interview, like the part you liked the best, I think that's a great way to like push people back to the full YouTube video or something, like to the full podcast. But I recently heard something, I think it was from the newsletter Morning Brew, and they said that it's not about content creation anymore, but it's about distribution. And I thought that was super interesting because like the content marketing is such a popular thing. It's such a popular phrase. Like I do content marketing, or you have to do content marketing to build your brand. But it's not necessarily just content marketing. Now it's about distribution in the right ways. So just like you said, like utilizing your TikTok to grow your podcast by cutting out clips and like posting those, or just going on TikTok, talking about your show and then pushing people back to wherever they watch it, Spotify or Apple or whatever. I think people do have to focus on that distribution more, or maybe equal to the actual content creation.
Yeah, well, very true. And it's like I've got a couple people I know that just they'll do like daily uploads. Like they'll just upload content all the time with little to no marketing. And it's an interesting logic. And maybe it's just because of my marketing background, I look at certain things as opportunities to grow and expand. But when I see stuff like that, I'm like, okay, I get the logic. I think a lot of people are so used to seeing like, oh, this person got discovered off of that one video blew up, or that one thing I did blew up or went viral. And it's like, okay, but what is a sustainable long-term plan for yourself? What are you going to utilize to, market yourself or leverage yourself beyond just this one video? Because at this point, especially with the pandemic going on, people are consuming content like crazy. So you're going to be another number, but how are you going to stand out when a person decides to click on you?
Yeah. Like how are you going to stay relevant?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't, I think that's one area where a lot of people it doesn't click, but when it does click, it clicks.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. It's hard to figure out what your audience wants to see from you, or what's something good that you can provide to them. Like that's pretty hard to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's always, it's like you said earlier about, creating value. And that is something I think a lot of people struggle with. I know even for myself with like rebranding my YouTube channel, like I put up my podcast there and I also do reviews. But one thing I started doing was tutorial series on how to start a podcast, because so many people have asked me like, oh, Mikhail, like I want to start a podcast. I need to buy this equipment, right? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And I'm like, just start. Like your StreamYard, use this, use this. You can start with this. You can start with whatever you have. If you've got, your smartphone, or if you've got, you can
even start with the phone. You can start with your iPad. Yeah. You don't need fancy things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I did a whole, I think my first episode dove into utilizing the, what you have, and had a strong emphasis on using StreamYard. And second episode was about marketing. And I dove into like, this is what you do if you want to market on social media. This is how you use tweets. Like, Twitter's algorithm constantly changes to either using no more than 3 hashtags, or it's using no hashtags. I think right now it's no hashtags. And then Instagram is like, put all these dots, and then 30
Yeah.
or so hash. It keeps changing, and a lot of people keep
Yeah.
telling me like, "Oh, it's so hard to keep up with it." I'm like, I'm like, how you can keep up is if you see someone who's doing well on Twitter or whatever these social media
Yeah.
platforms, look at what they're doing
Mhm.
and emulate it. You don't have to copy it to a
Yeah.
T, but if they're not using hashtags, but you're seeing that they're having high engagement, then that's what you probably should be doing, because the platforms themselves are not going to tell you, hey, we changed our algorithm. You're just going to
Yeah.
see it based off of your
You're gonna have
engagement
to
and
like
metrics.
figure it out every time they switch something in the algorithm.
Yeah.
So I think everyone just needs to follow you, Miguel,
Oh
and
my
that's how they'll figure it out.
so so one of the other things that's really cool with you guys, the StreamYards, is I know on Facebook and on YouTube, you guys have the town hall where you do
Hmm.
live streams, and like one of the recent ones I saw was how to create lower thirds, and
Yep.
the different features. Like, how
Yeah.
long has that been going on, and what was the inspiring force behind that?
So the town hall is actually the very first live stream series that the co-founders started doing right
Mm-hmm.
after they launched StreamYard. So I think their very first live stream was January 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're on episode like 92 or something. So the two co-founders, Gage and Dan,
Mm-hmm.
two co-founders of StreamYard, go live every single week, every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific on our YouTube, just like you said, on our YouTube, on our Facebook, on our LinkedIn. And they just talk to users. So it's kind of like a Q&A. So users will be able to come into the live chat and just say, hey, are you gonna add 1080p HD sometime soon? And then they're able to say, hey, thanks so much for the question. Like, here's our plan, kind of like we're gonna add
Mm-hmm.
it in March or April or whatever. We already added it, by the way.
Yeah.
But things like that, the people are able to chat directly with the co-founders. And then it's also just a way for us to update our users. Like, hey, we just released stereo audio. Like that was this week's feature.
Mm-hmm.
So the town hall is one of our shows, and they still do it every single week, which blows my mind because I take weeks off from my from my show. But they've gone live every single Sunday, and I think that just really it makes our users, like our biggest fans, it makes them feel, I don't know, it feels like they'll show up, like Gage and Dan will show up for them every
Mm-hmm.
single week, and it makes them feel maybe more loyal to StreamYard or the product, because Gage and Dan are really showing up saying, we're here for you every single week. We're going to build this product for you and add features for you, basically. So I think that makes people feel like they can trust the product a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But what you mentioned, we're starting to do more live streams hosted by other people. That's been a recent ad just in the last couple of weeks, where we've reached out to some of the other fans of StreamYard who have big YouTube channels, have big podcasts, have big things like this, to start doing content for our users on our channels. So we
Nice.
just had, I think D Nimmin went live. He has a YouTube channel helping
Oh,
people grow their YouTube channels.
yeah, Dean
And
and
so
Nick, those are friends of mine.
Yep. Oh, how neat. Yeah. So Dee and Nick are both creating, they love StreamYard. They go live on StreamYard. They talk about StreamYard in their YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so good for people starting a YouTube channel to at least go live once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And they're great on camera, obviously. They have a great YouTube channel. They both have great YouTube channels. So they've decided to start producing content kind of for StreamYard's users.
Mm-hmm.
And also on their channels, they always talk about StreamYard once in a while. But that's been a recent ad. So if you're a user of StreamYard and you want to learn more about StreamYard, like our weekly, I would just follow our YouTube channels, just youtube.com/StreamYard, to just stay updated and learn new things each week, because we're adding more live streams on different kinds of content, just about streaming and streaming on StreamYard there.
Yeah, definitely. And what are winding down to the last couple of questions, being completely respectful of your time, but what are some features that have been requested since everything that's come out so far? The video clips and the additional branding options. Like, what are some features that people are I guess if you could share, like, people are requesting, because I'm over here thinking, like, I can only think of probably one feature, and that's being able to like stream to like I Instagram, but I think that would be tricky. But other than that, like
Yeah.
uh
Yeah. So it really depends on what people are using StreamYard for, and
mhm,
that's gonna decipher what feature they really want. So we have a lot of people in the podcasting community actually who want the ability to change the volume of everyone during the stream. Like,
oh
so
yeah.
volume, what we just call the feature volume control.
Mhm,
That's been requested quite a bit because sometimes you come on a podcast and like your guest is like really loud and you got to turn them down just a bit to like match you. So that's been requested, and we do plan on adding that one. And then another feature that gets requested a lot is, it's kind of an interesting feature. They want the ability to mirror the camera.
mhm,
So how it looks right now, it's just one. There's only one way. You can't flip it to be the other angle. But
mhm,
how you normally look on Zoom is like where writing would be backwards. So you see my Portland sign here. It would
mhm.
show Portland backwards if we weren't mirrored this way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So people have really been requesting that feature. But you're right that since we've added so many features, like we've added the bulk of our features in the last, I don't know, since May, we've added so many features like 1080p and stereo audio and just things like that. I can't even list them all, and video clips.
Mhm,
But since then, there really hasn't been a huge like demand for other features
mhm,
anymore. Like we used to get the demand, like people were dying for mobile hosting, which is just being
mhm.
able to use StreamYard on your phone. And so we put that out, and then we had a lot less feature requests because everyone wanted that, and then everyone wanted 1080p, and then we released that resolution. But there's always like little things that we do plan on adding that people will ask for, like
Mhm.
RTMP ingest and things like that. That still get asked for, but wouldn't really benefit
Yeah.
the mass users of StreamYard. But yeah, there should be some fun things still in the pipeline.
Nice, nice, nice. I know one of the other cool features is the ability to like move. Like we could easily do stuff like that, which
Yeah.
is a brand new feature that I absolutely love, because there's sometimes like when I'll have a guest, I'm like, oh, it would be better if I have you over here versus here. And
Yeah.
I know before that wasn't a feature we had, but now it's in here, and I'm like, I absolutely love it. And
Yeah.
I agree. Volume leveling. I've had so many guests. I don't know if I think they're using like the Blue Yeti or something like that. And
Yeah.
I had one guest. His game was so loud.
Oh no.
I was like,
It was like maxed out.
yeah. I'm
Oh
like,
no.
oh God, my ears are gonna bleed.
Yeah. And then you got to like turn them down, but then you
Yeah,
you can't like, that's just turning them down for you. You can't like turn them down.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that feature would have been beneficial would have been beneficial to you. But yeah, I love that feature too. And for the people who are just listening to us on the podcast, we're talking about moving where we are located, like on the actual live stream, like of the video. And I think that was a feature that was requested for the longest time, because on StreamYard there's a layout where one person can be bigger and then all the
Hmm.
other guests are on the side, and that feature's great for like featuring someone who's like the guest speaker, and then you have everyone else like waiting, but they still need to be in the conversation. And
Hmm.
so previously you could only have the host in that big spot to like talk about the show and announce the show. And so people were always dying to get their guests in that big spot. So now you can just pick whoever's there. And just like you showed, you can switch us at any time. So I'm glad you like that feature too.
And also like the other brand new feature you guys have is a full HD 1080p, which is
Hmm.
I think I'm going to be upgrading to that, because
Nice.
I do. One of the main reasons that I know this feature's been available for a couple months now, but one of the reasons I've stayed with 720p is just because I also upload this to Twitch, and Twitch kind of has a compression feature where they compress it down to 720. So it's like,
Hmm.
all right, I guess for the sake of uh, consistency, I'll keep it at 720, but I'm really looking forward to upgrading to the 1080p feature because I think that's going to be completely amazing.
Yeah. And for the people who get to watch it in 1080p, like I know Facebook doesn't have it, Twitch doesn't have it, but YouTube's got 1080p. For those people, it's really nice. And then it's also a reason to send people over to your YouTube because it's like, if you want to see this in 1080p, follow me on YouTube.
Right. And then I think the other thing too is added with the professional plan. So there are 3 plans that people are interested. There's the free plan, which gets you, you do have some streaming limits. So you can have 6 on-screen participants and the StreamYard branding. And then the most popular plan is $25 plan a month. If you want to do, you can do monthly or annually. If you do annually, you get to save about $60 plus. And it gets you custom overlays, backgrounds, your logo, up to 10 people on screen, unlimited streaming. I believe custom RTMP destinations, as well as recording for about 4 hours on streams. And you can restream to or multi-stream to like 3 different destinations. And if you want to do the professional, which is $49 a month, if you do monthly or if you want to switch to annually, I believe annually is about $39. If you break it down, you'll save about $10 a month, which is something I'm going to be switching over to. But
nice.
1080p full HD, you can do up to 8 hours streaming or recording, and then you've also got the functionality of 8 different destinations for multi-streaming, which is definitely a godsend. I love that.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, those are our 3 plans, and we like to keep everything easy, like not just the StreamYard Studio is easy. Like our plans are easy to understand. Like if you're just starting out, like start on the free plan. Like just get comfortable with streaming to one destination, and you have to have our logo, but you can upgrade later. But then on the next plan,
logo.
20. Well, thank you. I like it. It's the duck is kind of cute.
Yeah.
But if you want to add your own customization, like you can start with just the $25 a month one until you work up to, okay, now I'm ready for the full gamut, all the features, and then that one's $49 a month. Yeah,
definitely. It's definitely worth it. And I highly suggest you guys check it out. I'll leave the link in the description of the podcast, and also for the video format and audio format for you guys to try it out because it's definitely worth it, especially if you're trying to step up your quality, if you're trying to get into podcasting or content streaming or recording. You're looking for an alternative to other platforms that you may be used to, and you just don't want to download, because I hate downloading different software. You can just do
me too.
Straight from StreamYard.
Yeah. And the nice thing is like for those people who aren't techie or tech, I don't know if techie is the right word, but who just don't really understand how the intricacies of computers work. Like there's a huge benefit of it running in the browser, like being cloud-based, because then both of us are connected to the server separately. And that means it's not all reliant on my internet connection or just your internet connection. Like we're both just connected to the server. So as long as the server's up and running, which it is, then we're gonna have a great show.
Yeah. And down to the last question: is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with before we go?
That's a good question. I think we hit it on the nose with just get started. Like I know a lot of your viewers are thinking about starting a podcast or they want to be like you and they want to grow a podcast to the size you've grown. But I think just get started. Like just sign up for StreamYard. See if you like podcasting. See if you even like going live. But I think that's the best place to get started. So use the link in the description to get set up.
Okay. And I lied. My final question is, Dana, did you have fun today?
I did. Oh my gosh. I always have fun on your show. Please have me back in the future.
Definitely. And where can people, I'll leave, obviously I'm going to leave links in the description, but where can people find you and find StreamYards? What platforms?
Yeah, you can find StreamYard anywhere. You just Google all our platforms. But you can find me on YouTube. I'm trying to grow my YouTube show. That's my 2 cents with Bentz. So it's youtube.com/Dana Bentz. Super easy.
Okay. And if you're watching or listening, go sub to her channel. I'll leave a link to that down in the description below.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on.
Of course. And with that being said, people, that's it. That's the episode. If you're looking for it, if you're watching, I'll read out where it is, because if you're watching, you can clearly see it. It's down here. But if you're watching, it's on multiple platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Pandora. We just recently got on Amazon Music, which is amazing. That's been shooting
congrats.
up our
That's awesome.
Our audience is just astronomically blown.
That's awesome.
Like just blown up from being on Amazon Music. But
yeah,
and then we're also on Twitch as well as on YouTube. So those are the platforms that we're on, and I don't think there's any other, well, maybe Podcast One, but I'm not too sure if we're gonna go on that, because I think if you go on there, you have to be exclusive to that, and I'm like,
oh yeah,
I don't know if I want to do that. Yeah. So
it's more fun to be on all of them.
it is, and it's like, where are you at? I'm everywhere.
Yeah.
You know,
I like that, and you get closer to the mic. I'm everywhere.
So that being said, you guys can catch this episode of the podcast on all those available outlets. And with that being said, Dana and I are out. You guys have a great one.
See ya.
Hey, did you enjoy this episode of the Kasanova podcast? Well, I'm sure you did. And since you did, and you're wondering where else you can find it on every podcasting outlet. Yes, that includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Launchpad DM by Podcast One, and so much more. And the only thing I ask of you is, if you truly enjoyed it, even if you didn't enjoy it, please leave a rating and tell us what you thought of it, what you like, what you didn't like, and everything in between. And also, if you're looking for video formats of this podcast and many more, you'll be able to find them on youtube.com/Mikhail Kasanova, as well as on twitch.tv/Mikhail Kasanova, and new episodes every single Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, with that being said, this is Mikhail Kasanova, Hawaii's favorite YouTuber. I am signing out. You guys have a great one.